Well, hello wrestling fans, are you ready to rock and roll tonight? Because my word, we have a lot of wrestling news to cover. Oh, Connor, thank you very much for that update. I'll immediately change that on Twitch. Thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, and all variations thereof and not thereof, there is a world of wrestling content that is out there, and there is so much news to talk about. But today we have a little bit extra because we are covering a whole variety of topics in this particular stream. Just to list a few of them, we are talking about a number, which is actually gone up to 6 people, big name talent who have been on Liv Morgan's side and have already pitched her to management in the last few weeks. We're talking about the plan for SummerSlam between Rousey and what was Charlotte and is now Liv Morgan. We're going to be talking plans for Austin Theory, plans potentially for the breakup of Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, which have been in the work for over a year. We're going to at least briefly discuss the impending return of Edge, and then we're going to break down all of the news incoming for SummerSlam. When it comes to SummerSlam, we're going to look at the card so far. There are 7 matches that we are going to be discussing, so quite a lot of wrestling to talk about and quite a lot to cover. As always, we will also be discussing any topics that you raise and any questions that you have. I can already see questions about Sasha. Her name will come up, but there is no formal update about her, just that she is one of those 6 names that we are going to be discussing. Connor, just one more thank you to say that I'm going to update my category. I did miss that one, so thanks for immediately letting me know. I'm just getting us back onto the sports section and the wrestling section on Twitch. So please do get your questions in nice and quick. We will be going through the chat between topics, but I'm going to start pretty much immediately on our discussion about Liv Morgan's championship win. Now, I can see several people asking questions based around a report that came via Stephanie Hypes, who was close to a photographer for Ronda Rousey and spoke with her there, to my knowledge, stating that Ronda Rousey had herself gone to upper management. I would assume this is in reference to Vince McMahon, given that talent relations aren't really there at the moment, and implored them to make Liv Morgan the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, number of things to consider there. Number of things. First and foremost, it is not up to Ronda Rousey who becomes the SmackDown Women's Champion, so if you think she's booking it, you are incorrect. However, there is also an element of truth to it. Ronda Rousey was open and did speak with management about losing the championship to Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan's name did specifically come up in discussion between Ronda Rousey and upper level management. However, she was not alone. And I have a list of other people who have knowingly spoken directly with the management team. In this regards, it would be suggested that it's Stephanie, but in reality, it's probably going to be Vince. The names that I have so far who have spoken about championship wins for Liv Morgan to management are Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, and Sasha Banks. They have all spoken to upper level management about Liv Morgan in order to convince the WWE to give her the spot. You may notice that Sasha Banks is in that list, but she was not there at Money in the Bank. This is a long time thing. Becky Lynch, for example, has been talking about Liv Morgan for months now. For months. Liv Morgan herself was not told until the day that she would be winning the briefcase, and then not told until after that she would be winning the championship. The main reason for this is to avoid leaks, because let's say, for example, on Raw or on SmackDown, Liv Morgan was going to cash in and win the championship. Well, the entirety of Raw and SmackDown tends to get leaked ahead of time. So it's very hard to say conclusively that there would have been no leaks. The WWE trying to protect themselves from that in order to ensure that the information did not get out by not telling Liv Morgan. This is one of the many reasons, as Sai pointed out on the watch-along that we did, that Liv Morgan was in tears as she came out knowing that she would win the briefcase. As an aside, a number of people from the men's division have also had Morgan's back recently. These are the extra names that I found since. Most notably, they include AJ Styles and Xavier Woods. AJ Styles apparently had been requesting that Liv Morgan be involved in his feud with Judgment Day. Xavier Woods knows Liv Morgan quite well, so he also, strangely, very much has the ear of Vince McMahon directly. Vince McMahon really does trust and listen to Xavier Woods, and Xavier Woods was talking up Liv Morgan. So that is how we got to where we are now with Liv Morgan. The report about Ronda Rousey asking the WWE to have her lose the championship and hand it over to Liv Morgan, not quite true, but also not quite false. She did speak up about wanting Liv Morgan to become a champion, but she's not the only one. Now, if we speak directly about the SummerSlam plans, Rousey versus Charlotte was the plan until the change, which came late in the day and was related to the injury to Cody Rhodes. The WWE making changes to ensure that a feel-good vibe, as it were, ended the show, or at least was a large part of the show. Now, the WWE apparently really aren't happy with how Ronda Rousey has done on SmackDown so far and felt a change was needed. Ronda Rousey herself is not receiving much in the way of blame there, but they are considering changes to make to her character an overall appeal because they don't feel that she is connecting with the audience in the right way. The hope was that if she was working against Sasha Banks, there would be a little bit more to really get their teeth stuck into. A part of this is that a heel turn is being considered, and that has been considered for the past 2 months or so, essentially since she returned and won the championship. That would necessitate that at SummerSlam, if Charlotte Flair does invade the match, she would attack Liv Morgan instead of Ronda Rousey. The hope is that she would attack Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan would then pick up the win by DQ. She would then attack Ronda Rousey, leading to the possibility of a triple threat into the UK, or further, as it were. But it would mean that we are looking at Liv Morgan retaining the championship for a little while longer. From what I can tell, Liv Morgan will be holding that title at least until after Saudi Arabia, but not necessarily all the way into Survivor Series. So it's looking like a decent length of championship reign for her first one. As regards the future of Ronda Rousey, she would then be moved on to either a Lacey Evans or a Raquel Rodriguez, though WWE also didn't quite enjoy the reaction to Lacey Evans at Money in the Bank. One final addition to this is talk about the return schedule for Bayley. Bayley's return may have been pushed back to make room for this title change, with the Liv Morgan championship win taking the belt away from Ronda Rousey. Though they are still pitching a number of different ideas for Bayley's return. Liv Morgan moving full-time to SmackDown, as she will be doing this championship run, does open the door for Bayley to be the one to return to Raw, rather than Bayley to debut once again on SmackDown, as was the plan until last week. Bayley is still waiting at the moment for the right opportunity to come up, but she is training, her knee is absolutely fine, and she is more than ready to jump in. Right, we have a lot of comments to get through. We still have news on Austin Theory, we still have news on SummerSlam and the Street Profits breakup as well, so make sure you stay tuned, and if you're watching on YouTube, please hit like. We're on 16 likes, but 45 viewers, so every little helps. Please do consider hitting like. Sean is here, says, hello Tom, how are you on this Monday night? Very well, thank you. Wiggly is here, saying yo 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 yo. Spider-Boss says, hi Tom, I wonder if Liv's title reign will last more than Nikki Ash's title reign in 2021. It's certainly been suggested that that's the case. However, the WWE are taking this on a case-by-case basis. The Nikki Cross title reign was supposed to last longer. However, the fans turned on her heavily, so they cut it short. Sean says, I'm sure you've been asked this since the reports have come out. Is it true that Ronda pitched to have Liv beat her for the title? I have covered that at this point. Spider-Boss says, I'm still wondering why Theory won the Money in the Bank ladder match. More to come on that later. Spider-Boss says, is Liv just a transitional champion for Ronda to win the title back? I believe I've covered that as well. Michael says, hi Tom. Hello Michael, how are you doing? Connor, thank you for that alert. I don't think I've been able to fix it. It's not accepting it at this point in time. It's not doing the search. But we are where we are with this one. And I'll fix that hopefully sooner rather than later. Lohogman says, hi Tom. Hello Lohogman, how are you? Spider-Boss says, I wonder if Charlotte will get in the title as soon as she returns. Yes, because ultimately if you want Liv Morgan to have a good reign, you don't have her facing off against Shotzi for 20 weeks. You have her pick up wins after a fashion against Ronda. You have her pick up wins after a fashion against Charlotte. Charlotte, I suspect, would happily lose to Liv Morgan. After all, she already has. Austin is also talking about Ronda Rousey. Hello Austin. Hello Brandon. How you doing, mate? Kervin says, yo. Hello Kervin, how are you? And Sean Garner says, will Liv get a championship celebration? Yes, she will. It is more likely to be on SmackDown. As I mentioned, that is where she's headed now. The championship win does move her full-time to SmackDown. I suspect she'll get a send-off on Raw and then a formal celebration on SmackDown. Connor, I do apologise if I didn't properly celebrate it. I do want to say Big thanks, Connor, for the renewed subscription. That is your 11th month. I did see you earlier on in the Radio Techers chat. Glad to see you all over the wrestling Twitter sphere and YouTube sphere, as it were. Thank you, as always, for joining me here for an 11th month. That is nearly a year, nearly a solid year. Well done for you. JJ says, hey Tom, how are you? Very, very good, thank you. Enjoyed my weekend, nice and chill. It's my birthday coming up. I have an overlay for the birthday stream that I will show you all later. You can look forward to that. Matthew Ham says, hey Tom, who is Bianca facing at SummerSlam? Bianca at this point is not on the list of matches that are being finalised as of yet. There is a plan. I do believe it's likely going to be Carmella again, or it may of course be Bayley's return. We'll see how it plays out, but at the moment I unfortunately do not have an answer for that. Connor says the biggest question that can be asked is going to be asked by me right now. Any ideas on how MMM done on Friday was seen backstage? The backstage team were very, very happy with the overall presentation of the MMM segment. They were also quite happy with the social media response to the crew, as it were, to the modelling agency. I expect we are going to see more of MMM every single week as they continue to push them and use them. They were well received. We will be seeing more. Lahawkman says, I hope WWE finds a way to make Liv retain against Rousey at SummerSlam. They can, they likely will. I did mention there's a prospect of Charlotte attacking her. Michael says, I wanted Liv to win Money in the Bank so bad. Your time has come, sir. Your time has come. Dominic Perez, welcome, mate. Says, hi, Tom. Happy 4th of July. And happy 4th of July to anyone who is celebrating. Is a world title going back to Raw, or are they still going to be unified? Thank you. Not sure. Not sure at this point. Of Austin Theory winning the briefcase is very hard to say, particularly given when he's likely to cash it in. More on that shortly. Austin says Liv was such a good choice. I totally agree. Sean says, saw a report from Ringside News saying that Cody was never penciled in to win Money in the Bank. I found that BS. You've said many times Cody was the original plan. I and many others have said for a while that Cody was the original plan. The main reason for that is because Cody was the original plan. There's a couple of chats I missed from the YouTube side before we started. Let me just catch up on them. Hypnosis Bro says, I might be late to the stream tonight, so I'm going to ask this question now just in case I don't make it. Is Becky versus Bianca the plan for SummerSlam, or are we continuing Asuka Becky and Bianca Rhea? It is close to the latter. Pardon me, but it does depend on Rhea Ripley. She has a head injury. They are not rushing her back. They are not making plans for her at this point in time. And Steve says, I'd like to see a triple threat with Liv, Ronda and Charlotte at SummerSlam, but if it is Liv versus Ronda, then perhaps Charlotte will return at SummerSlam to cost Ronda the match. How would you feel about this? I wouldn't hate it. It means that Liv Morgan can have a championship reign for a little longer, because I promise you she's not beating Ronda Rousey clean. And Wrestler Fan says, with Theory no longer facing John Cena at SummerSlam, is Theory going to be at SummerSlam? And if he is, who will he face? He will be at SummerSlam. I'm not sure who he'll actually be competing against, but I'm confident it will be a loss. The fact that John Cena is no longer facing him was part of the reason that he's won the briefcase. More on that later. Simon says, any new Sasha Banks updates? I've already shared everything I know about Sasha Banks. And Jermaine says, hi Tom, hope you are having an awesome day. Thank you very, very kindly, Jermaine, and very much you too. Sean says she's just going to lose it at SummerSlam, probably won't get another reign. I mean, you say that, but that's not what I'm getting from WWE at this point in time. Oh, there we go. Hypnosis Pro says, hey Tom, just in time for the live stream. Any update on Bayley or Charlotte? Charlotte still planned to return shortly, likely to be at SummerSlam. Bayley may have been held back by the changes made to the Money in the Bank briefcase winner. Liv Morgan winning it does open the door for Bayley to, for example, go to Raw instead of SmackDown, as they were considering, because now Liv Morgan is on SmackDown. Edward says Bayley has always been openly supportive of Liv on Twitter. She is one of many people. Obviously, in the last year or so, I did list a number of names there: Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Ronda Rousey, AJ Styles, Xavier Woods, Liv Morgan, very popular backstage. A lot of people really trying everything they can to make it happen for her. Brandon says, still can't really believe just like that Liv Morgan has won the briefcase and also became the new champ straight away, pretty much. It was a good show, mate. Money in the Bank was a good show. JJ says, hopefully Ronda can turn heel now. That is part of what they are considering. KJ says, what's up, Tom? What's up, KJ? How are you, mate? Razar says, if it's Liv versus Ronda at SummerSlam, where does this leave Charlotte? ready to get involved at pretty much any point at which she wishes to. Simon says Sasha Bayley are the best for supporting Liv long term. They're also not the only ones who supported Liv long term. KJ says, in my opinion, Liv versus Ronda versus Flair, with Liv going over. Natalya being involved again, not the worst thing either, but a triple threat there would work in their favour. Hi Moxie, how you doing, mate? Spider-Boss says fans speculated that Ronda rejected the idea of Becky cashing in on her. That didn't happen. That did not happen, I can promise you that. Joey says, hey Tom, do you know what the plan is for Liv Morgan as women's champ? Are they going to have her feud with Charlotte? I did lay out the plan at the moment earlier on in the show. By all means, dip back. But from what I was able to find out, the plan is to have her facing Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam and find a way to retain that will probably involve Charlotte Flair. Jermaine says Liv Morgan win the title also opens the door for Ronda to be moved to Raw as a heel to take that title from Bianca, which is also a possibility and puts her directly in the line of fire for Becky. Jay says, so they changed Becky from winning to Liv, and I'm assuming Becky was okay with that, but why didn't Seth win? I'm not sure. I don't know why the changes were made. We know for a fact that the Liv Morgan change was made very late in the day. The Austin Theory one, we're not sure at this point, but we do know that Cody Rhodes was originally down to win it. A number of different people have confirmed so. Wiggly says, what do you make of Jesus going to Arsenal? I think it gets in the way of a lot of very talented players like Eddie Nketiah, but I do think they needed someone with a bit more experience to lead the line because Lacazette surely is going at this point. Andrew Quinn, welcome, says, will we get that mysterious person tonight on Raw with that teaser during Money in the Bank? I don't know if we will see Edge tonight. It is Edge. I don't know if we'll see Edge himself tonight, but I do know we will at the very least see another vignette as he continues building to his return. Joey says, is Austin Theory going to cash in on Roman? There is news on that shortly as soon as I've caught up on the chat. Simon says, any Adam Cole updates? Any MJF AWTV return updates? Nope, no updates on either of those whatsoever. MJF is still negotiating a new deal and Adam Cole is still injured. Hypnosis Bro says, I heard Gunter was on Raw tonight. Please give me a segment with Lashley. I'm not sure where you heard that. He's on SmackDown, so I don't know if that's going to be the case, but interesting to see how that goes. Lahogman says, do you think someone will replace Liv's spot on Raw? Nope, they already have way too many people for a simple cut and paste replacement there. They already have more than enough women on the Raw roster to use. They don't need to replace, as it were. Bayley says the fans in the arena seemed really behind Liv, and WWE pays notice to this. As he said, the response to Lacey was not good. Very true. Spider-Boss says Becky's reaction after losing in Money in the Bank was priceless. She is very happy to be continuing that particular storyline and that particular element of her breakdown. She's not the only one who's just very happy with the continuation of that. Spider-Boss says, I've already read that one. Connor says, big up the Triple M, big up MMM. Moxley says, do you see Drew beating Roman for one of the titles? No. Joey says, are they going to do Rhea and Bianca at SummerSlam? Once again, this is down to whether Rhea has been cleared or not. It's a head injury, they're being careful. Simon says, Raw is a skip tonight. 4th of July Independence Day hot dog eating contest. That is bad. Is it? If you're a regular of watching Up, Up, Down, Down, you'll know that Xavier Woods, for example, who's usually in these shows and in these matches, has a great time doing them. The wrestlers really enjoy it. Austin says, I so hope Brock takes the belts. That is not going to be happening, I can say that. Noob says, hello, how are you doing today? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. I hope you are well as well. And Sean says, what do you think Liv's send-off from Raw will be? I think she will hold up the championship, say bye Raw, and then that will be it. I don't think there'll be anything in particular. Maybe she'll have a match where she beats Becky. I suddenly really like that idea. As I continue to try and fly through these questions to get to the rest of the news that we have, which will be on Austin Theory, the breakup of the Street Profits, and the upcoming SummerSlam pay-per-view, please do remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please do remember to hit the thumbs up. That little like goes a long way and really does help us grow. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Spider Boss says, I didn't enjoy that so much, the Bianca versus Carmella. I think the predictability of it didn't really help, but it was an okay match. John Misenberg, how you doing, mate? Says, hey Tom, hope you're well. Is it Misenberg or Meisenberg? Please let me know. Simon says, your opinion, Gabby going to Arsenal for 50 million. I don't know who you mean by Gabby. If you mean Jesus, I've already mentioned that. Johnny Mendez says, hey Tom, hope you're having a good day. I am, thank you. With the undisputed titles, it seems WWE doesn't want a brand split, but they have to appease the networks. Do WWE genuinely want a brand split themselves? Yes, when both shows were still on one network, they introduced the brand split, so it very much is the WWE that want that. Kevin says, I wish fans stop blaming Shotzi for the botching. Nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. And ultimately, yes, mistakes were made during that match, but nobody was hurt. It was still plenty entertaining. And as I did mention, most of the women from the SmackDown side hadn't had any rehearsal time when they got to the arena. There had been no rehearsal time. They were doing the best they could in the hotel the night before, literally on their beds. That's the situation that we ended up with. So I'm not blaming Shotzi. Moxley says, Tom, I would have the Judgment Day go to SmackDown, and I'd have Rhea beat Liv for the title after Saudi Arabia. Rhea is still very much earmarked for Bianca Belair. Wiggly says, I wish Asuka would win everything. She can't win everything, mate. Hypnosis Pro said, please have Becky involved in this food contest. That's apparently happening tonight. I love her downward spiral. It's why I'm so enamoured of the idea that she could challenge Liv and lose clean tonight. Could be fun. Also, yeah, why not? Noob says, Money in the Bank has been fun on Saturday. It was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. And Simon says, Survivor Series is champion versus champion. How can Roman face himself? They have to split the world titles by Survivor Series. I have been saying that they will do that for a number of months now. Sean says, pretty terrible that Alexa is getting attacked for defending what Shotzi tweeted about the Money in the Bank match. Alexa gets attacked for literally everything she tweets. People are dicks. Kevin says, Tom, can you see WWE booking champion Bobby Lashley versus Gunther for Survivor Series 2022? As things stand, that's where they're going. I had thousands of people interacting with my tweet about that yesterday. People love that idea. Austin says Brock is scheduled for the Raw July 11th episode, as is Roman to my knowledge. And Brandon says they should have MVP become Theory's manager along with Omos as his protector. I wouldn't hate it. Really wouldn't. Spider-Boss says Bayley would be a good opponent for Bianca. Bayley has unfinished business. She does indeed. And Hypnosis Bro says Becky Lynch versus whom will happen at SummerSlam. We do have information on SummerSlam coming in the news that I've got here. We will be sharing that as soon as I've caught up with the chat. Moxie says, do you see Edge coming back as a big face or a really evil Edge? Once again, I have more news on SummerSlam coming shortly. Sean says, seems like Samantha Irvin, the ring announcer, got a little emotional when announcing Liv as a new champ. Yeah, a lot of people really like her. A lot of people just really very much like her. Connor, just a huge, massive thanks there. Massive thanks. Connor has gifted 5 memberships to the YouTube side. 5 Tom Colohue memberships. Thank you so much, mate. I did not know we even had... I didn't know we had gift gift memberships on YouTube yet. Thank you so much for your generosity there. That goes a long way and really does mean a lot, especially given that you've just renewed on Twitch as well. I'm very grateful for the support. Thank you kindly. Also takes me up to 10 total members on YouTube now. There'll be more members only content coming, but that's just wonderful news. Thank you very much. For those who don't know, you have to opt in to a YouTube membership. So the other 4 are currently sitting in limbo until people opt in, at which point they will get them, as Johnny Crow has just done there. Once again, thank you, Connor, for that. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. I'm okay. JJ also receiving there. Thank you kindly. Spider-Boss says, I feel bad for Seth Rollins. He was winning the WWE title at day 1, and that changed. Seth was a big favourite for the Money in the Bank ladder match and didn't win. Yes, Seth's been unlucky in a variety of different ways over the years when it comes to things like this. Injuries, removing him from the tag team section, but he did win the Intercontinental Championship section way back when. There's a number of different things and different ways that we got where we got with that. It's Seth has had some bad luck. Johnny Mendez has now received his membership, and Vitali Capro has received his. So that is all 5. Thank you once again for that generosity there, Connor. Thank you very much. Hypnosis Bro says Ronda might turn heel and Becky looks to turn babyface. All is almost fine with the world. That's what WWE are considering doing at this point in time. Samaro says, good evening, Tom, and salutations from France. Good evening, Samaro. Sean says, early update on Aaliyah. Nothing as of yet. Nobody really has much information about it. She is keeping it to herself. KJ says, as we know now, but they're obviously behind Liv. She beat Rhea and Banks recently. Then last week alone, she beat Alexa on Raw, picked up a six-woman tag team win on SmackDown, then wins Money in the Bank, and is now champ after pinning Ronda. Yeah, actually, looking backwards, hindsight 2020 and all that, should have seen this one coming. Johnny says, would love to see some of the smaller pay-per-views become brand exclusive once the roster becomes bigger. I liked having brand exclusive pay-per-views. I also liked having a few less pay-per-views. I think they could have afforded to do it like once every 6 weeks instead of once every 4. Joey says, any news on the women's tag titles? Well, they were considering having Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss as a tag team long-term to become tag team champions. That's no longer happening. So this, as much as anything else, was a mark of WWE once again giving up on those tag team championships. Moxley says, Tom, is Roman and Brock going to be on every SmackDown leading into SummerSlam? Not every, but most. Noob says Becky is going to continue her feud with Asuka, most likely at SummerSlam. I'm thinking a Nashville street fight match, which will be fun. That does sound like fun. Sean says, do you think Miz's response to Logan Paul tonight will be a challenge for SummerSlam? More on that shortly. Sean says, could we see Becky versus Liv for the title tonight with Liv winning? I have mentioned that as a prospect a few times. Jay says, I honestly want Becky versus Trish at SummerSlam, and Trish said she wanted a match against Becky. She does. She also very much wants a match against Alexa Bliss when the opportunity eventually comes around. Hypnosis Pro says, WWE have a chance to give us Gunther versus Lashley at Survivor Series. Don't mess this up. I completely agree. Spider-Boss says, Liv joined Becky and Charlotte as the only women to ever pin Ronda in WWE. Yeah, she's been pinned 3 times. She went a whole year and nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. And then she was finally pinned, and now she's been pinned twice in, 6 months? It's not great so far. It's not great. Star Wars Lion says, thank you to Connor. Oh, lovely. Sean says, glad to see Alexa supporting Liv. Proves she cares about the future of the business. She does, and she cares about Liv as well. As Moxie says, Tom, was Seth planned to beat Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble? He was not. There was never a plan for that to happen. Well, not to win the championship. He did technically beat him. Spider-Boss says, it's hard to believe that Seth hasn't won a world title since 2019. Indeed, that Universal Championship win was the last time, and people did turn on him pretty heavy during it. Moxie says, WWE push Kevin Owens. It's been 5 years since he's held a championship. Hopefully that day comes soon. JJ says, do you think her feud with Becky opened WWE eyes as well? Yes, it did. And throughout the entirety of that, she was, Becky in this instance, was putting over Liv as much as humanly possible backstage. Moxie says, Tom, maybe Alexa dethrones Liv. That would definitely be way down the line because that would be post-draft. Alexa is on Raw and Liv is now on SmackDown. And Spider-Boss says, is WWE still waiting for Zelina's return to do the tournament for the tag team titles? They were. I believe at this point they have given up entirely. Johnny Mendez says, I wonder if the draft splits up the Street Profits or a heel turn from Dawkins Ford. More to come on that. And Moxie says, imagine the prospect of Samoa Joe versus Gunther. I do, regularly, late at night, when I'm on my own. And Spider-Boss says, I always wondered why fans turned against Seth back in 2019. Because fans are, if I can quote Daniel Bryan, fickle. Let's get to some news, shall we? As I take myself a drink, if you've not already done so and you're watching on YouTube, please do remember to hit that thumbs up. That little like button goes a long way to the growth of the channel. We are still looking for more subscribers as we grow and as we're able to deliver more and more show for you. We are currently sitting at 1,128. If we're able to tip that just slightly over, Tom Colohue would be a very happy man. Let's have myself a drink. Thank you for your patience. Next up, I want to talk about Austin Theory and his briefcase win. Now, Cody Rhodes was the first plan to be picking up the win there. This has been confirmed by a number of sources after my initial report. I want to say a month ago. I believe I only officially reported it at Hell in a Cell. Knew bits of it, but didn't know the whole picture. So, a month ago. Austin Theory is likely to hold on to that briefcase for a long time. From what I can figure and what I can gather and what I've been told, the WWE are very worried about the idea of having Austin Theory run directly into the Roman Reigns juggernaut at this point in time. He will be making appearances. He will be celebrating having the briefcase, but he's unlikely to be involved with the bloodline directly at this point in time. Now, Sami Zayn may veer off and fend him off, as it were. But Austin Theory will mostly be celebrating having the briefcase, which means keeping a certain distance. Once Roman Reigns has lost one or both championships, at that point Austin Theory will then come into play. Failing that, they will change their mind and he will lose his cash-in. At the moment, he's down to win the cash-in and become champion early next year, from what I've been able to gather, but that may change. After all, it was a very late in the day choice to have him win it. I can also confirm that there are plans in place to split up Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins of the Street Profits. Started preparing concepts and scripts about a year ago now, but we're only formally seeing things come together now. This does date back well before the Roman Reigns versus Montez Ford main event of SmackDown many moons ago. Now, as everyone is already aware, Montez Ford is openly considered to be the star of the two, but Angelo Dawkins has become aware of this and that he's not considered as highly as his tag team partner is, and the WWE are also very pleasantly surprised with the way that he's turned it up recently. So Angelo Dawkins has essentially been challenged by the WWE to step it up and make sure they push him. He has stepped up, and the WWE are very excited by what he's been creating. Very excited indeed. As most of us will likely already be aware, we saw our first vignette for the impending return of a superstar during the Money in the Bank show. That superstar is Edge. I've been able to confirm with the WWE. He is planned to return in time for SummerSlam. Now, Edge's last appearance on WWE TV was when he was kicked out of his own Judgment Day stable by Finn Balor, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. Since then, Judgment Day has had quite a bit of bad luck, most notably the injury to Rhea Ripley, and that's seen them off TV a little bit. So it really was Edge that made that group what it was. I expect to see Edge returning shortly to start a good old-fashioned turf war against his former charges. Edge will be considered the face in this particular feud. I will catch up with the chat now after I've given that news, and then we will go on to the matches for SummerSlam. So far, the card has 7 matches on it, but more are likely to be added. Naturally, it's SummerSlam. So let's catch up with the chat, and then we'll go there. KJ says, any word in the KO video they played at Money in the Bank? They are pushing him at this point in time because they have big plans for him. He's definitely going to be involved at the very top level of the card. My suspicion is that we're going to see at this point Kevin Owens versus Bobby Lashley, with a return to the American hero that was Kevin Owens. WrestleFan says, will Gunther face Drew and Sheamus for the IC title at SummerSlam? I hope so. That sounds amazing. I don't think that's necessarily the plan for Drew McIntyre, though. That said, there are definitely a lot of plans being put together to get Gunther and the IC Championship onto the SummerSlam card. The WWE creative team have said, enough is enough. We've got to make this happen. Hypnosis Pro says, Tom, I figured it out. It makes sense to me now. Elrod was the guy who threw the pie at KO. Mystery solved after 8 years. You've nailed it there. You've absolutely nailed it. How did we not see this coming? Jermaine said, if there was a way to bring back Naomi and have her join the bloodline, having Roman being the one to bring her back to the WWE and then have Naomi beat Liv for the SmackDown Women's title, that would certainly be a good way to do it, and I think a solid heel for Liv Morgan to work against. But I just don't think they're going to be able to achieve it, unfortunately. Jay says, do you know who else likes Becky's story backstage? Honestly love it, and her acting every time she loses is hilarious, and all her fans on Twitter love it. Absolutely correct. Sean says, fans want new people pushed, but when those new people are pushed, fans turn on them, so what's the point of pushing someone new? A very fair question. A very fair question. But while a lot of people do have fans turn on them, I don't think that's happened to Damian Priest yet, for example. I don't think that's happened to Austin Theory, Rick Boogs. I don't think that's happened to Moss, Liv Morgan. I don't think that's actually happened to too many people recently because they're lower down the card when they get the push starting. What I will say is Liv Morgan taking the championship from Ronda Rousey was the first time in years that a title change had not involved at least one of the 4 horsewomen. Do you remember, right here on Spoiler Warning, when we shared the news that the Four Horsewomen would be taking a back seat as regards championship reigns. Well, here we are. We just had a pay-per-view where it was Bianca versus Carmella, and it was Rousey versus Natalya, and Liv Morgan winning the briefcase. The Horsewomen were featured, but they were nowhere near that briefcase. Spider-Boss says, I believe WWE made Theory win the Money in the Bank briefcase because if he fails a cash-in, it wouldn't hurt him. That is certainly a possibility, though they have decided they want him to win his cash-in. It's just whether or not it actually maintains, as it were. Connor says, to be fair, Liv said she was celebrating the briefcase and proceeded to cash in straight away. That is called a misdirect, and it's pretty good storytelling. Spider-Boss says, I guess if Theory ever gets involved with the Bloodline, he will get beat down. He will. He will be keeping his distance. Sean says, Theory winning the belts over Cody. I don't see that. Certainly not belts, plural. Jermaine says, if there was... I've already read that one. Hypnosis Bro says, wait, Tom, do you think Liv will be on Raw tonight? I wish they could do a celebration for her. I do think she's going to have a goodbye segment on Raw tonight. I am already in love with the idea that Becky Lynch would interrupt her, say, you can't have that championship. It's my championship. I challenge you, and Becky Lynch would lose. I'm just already in love with that idea. Johnny Mendes says, I wonder if they just have the Bloodline vacate one of their titles before Survivor Series due to the draft. Roman versus AJ or Seth at Survivor Series would be great. I agree. It doesn't say great things for that championship, but it is very WWE at this point in time. Hi Dimitar, unfortunately nothing new on Naomi or Sasha, just the update about Sasha going in to back Liv Morgan, one of many people who did so. Connor says, I never turned on Theory because I never liked him in the first place. Building someone up as a heel is a very good thing, and it's been very, very effective. It's harder to make someone get behind Moss than it is to make someone boo Austin Theory. Ultimately, you build more as a heel anyway. Hey, Si. Firstly, thanks for all the mod duties. You're doing absolutely fantastic, and I really do appreciate the support. And secondly, deliberately bad is sort of my thing, as you know. Douglas Beanio says, hello, Tom. Hello, Douglas. I love the idea of a ladder match for Usos versus Profits in SummerSlam. More on that shortly. Kevin says, if Charlotte beats Liv Morgan for the Women's Championship, fans are going to throw garbage. They will. I don't think that's likely to happen at this point in time. I think it is more likely we see Ronda reclaim that championship than Charlotte win it from Liv Morgan. Spider-Boss says Sasha versus Liv would be awesome, and Sasha versus Liv would certainly be on the docket to try and get Sasha back. Sasha Banks is a big fan of Liv Morgan, and she wants new women pushed. That's certainly a way of doing it. Spider-Boss says, is Theory cashing on the guy that beats Roman? That is more likely at this point in time, yes. Joey says, who's Volta going to face at SummerSlam? At the moment, the most likely name is Ricochet, but there is also a possibility of Drew McIntyre. JJ says, is it still talk for wanting Becky going to Hollywood? It's long overdue now. Yes and no. There is talk about it. There is interest from Hollywood, but to my knowledge, there is not so much interest from Becky Lynch herself. Michael says, hoping Sasha can be added to SummerSlam, but that's probably wishful thinking. It is, yeah. And Megan says, I still hope we'll see NXT back in Survivor Series again. Me too. I also thought that added a lot to that one Survivor Series, but it does give that actual one Survivor Series a lot of replay value, and it really makes it worth checking out after so long. It's a shame, but the WWE simply don't believe that there is any particular value in involving NXT in that level anymore. It's a shame, but we are where we are. We did just peak at 70 viewers purely on the YouTube side, 83 on YouTube and Twitch combined. So thank you very kindly everyone for supporting. We have 30 likes at the moment, 71 viewers I should say so far. Please remember on YouTube to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We are still trying to get to new levels as it were, and bit by bit we are getting there, so every subscribe helps, and by all means ask questions if you have any. Sean says Liv Morgan is a future WrestleMania main eventer. I don't see it yet, but I do see it coming. Spider-Boss says, still trying to understand why people compare Theory with John Cena. Mostly it's the build, to be honest. Mostly it's the physique. Spider-Boss says, Gunter versus Drew would be big meaty man versus big meaty man. Would anyone be upset by it, though? I don't think anybody would be. So I thought I posted that when you mentioned it and got distracted. Yeah, it's there is a lot to distract me, but I try my best to keep track. And because you've got the little icon by your name, I did spot it when you posted it. Spider-Boss says NXT victory at Survivor Series 2019 didn't help so much NXT. It did and it didn't. It didn't help them win, but it helped them survive a little longer. Megan says NXT being in Survivor Series again is more likely to happen than Evolution 2. It is now that women can wrestle at Saudi Arabia. They are not interested in a second Evolution pay-per-view. Even Elsis Bro says Liv versus Becky sounds perfect for tonight to really cement Liv's reign. If she can beat Becky, Ronda and someone else before losing the title, sounds like a great reign. It really does. Even if it's just those individuals, it's a good place to be. Even if it's not a convincing win over Ronda, if she scrapes out of it, as it were, I'd take it. Joey says, is John Cena still going to have a match with Austin Theory at SummerSlam? That does not look likely at this point in time, though John Cena is still planning to be involved. It looks like John Cena's appearance was actually a one-time thing, and he basically added something else to his schedule that precluded him from being at SummerSlam. Connor's enjoying the Volta versus Drew concept. Johnny says, this year at Survivor Series, I hope the winning team gets a reward. For example, the winning team is put into a battle royal with the winners getting to come in at 30 in the Rumble. I agree. I think that would be a good shout. I do think they need a bit more for it, but it would also make it very obvious that it's always Raw that wins. Moxie says, if Seth won the WWE title at day one, wouldn't Cody have beaten him at WrestleMania for the title? No. If Seth had won the WWE title at day one, then Big E would have beaten him for the championship at WrestleMania. That was the plan before Cody Rhodes became available. Megan would also be very happy with Drew versus Gunter. Thinks they'd work well together. I do think they'll have a natural chemistry, and let's not forget that on the main roster, Volta has only one loss, and it's in a Survivor Series match where he's pinned by Drew McIntyre. Spider-Boss says Trish, after WrestleMania this year, said that she wanted to face Sasha, but it depends on WWE. It does. Simon says, if not Drew, who is Roman losing one of the world titles to before Survivor Series? Seth is still the obvious choice. And Sai says, try again. I think the Cena Theory comparison is the obvious Vince project and the lame heel gimmick. Fair. Very fair. So as we head into our last 20 minutes, let's talk SummerSlam. I'm just going to briefly run down the matches that we either know or are heavily speculated on the SummerSlam card at the moment. There are 7 matches to run through, and we're just going to go into detail a little bit on plans for them. Firstly, Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey. The plan until about a week ago was still Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. They changed their minds, and now Liv Morgan, the current champion, will defend against Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. Charlotte Flair will undoubtedly be looking to get involved in this match. I don't see Liv, losing the championship this early. It just does not make sense to me that that would be the plan for Liv Morgan. Also at current, we still have another match for Becky Lynch versus Asuka. This would be leading into a formal Asuka versus Bianca Belair feud once Asuka has vanquished Becky Lynch. Becky is trying to get Asuka off her back because essentially her bad luck may have started at WrestleMania, but Asuka has been the main proponent of it since. They want one conclusive, definitive match at SummerSlam, straight wrestling match, to determine who is the quote-unquote better woman, and Becky Lynch wants to lose to Asuka. Becky Lynch, no one in the company has ever wanted to lose as many matches as Becky Lynch does to someone like Asuka, Liv Morgan. I've spoken for a while about Becky Lynch wanting to give back, and this is very much the moment in which it's going to happen. Connor has gifted another 5 channel memberships to members of the Tom Colohue channel. Once again, I should remind people that in order to get one of those gifts, all you have to do is opt in. At the top of the live chat, there should be an opt-in option that will allow you to receive a channel membership that has been gifted. Until then, they essentially wait in limbo until someone presses the relative button. Thank you, Connor, for gifting those memberships. I very much appreciate your continued generosity. I really do. Another match currently planned for SummerSlam is Baron Corbin versus Pat McAfee. We were all aware of this one, but it was formally accepted after the cameras went off at Money in the Bank. Michael, thank you very much for opting in and taking that membership from Connor. Douglas Bino as well, thank you very much for opting in and taking that membership from Connor. There are still 3 channel memberships waiting in limbo for anyone who wants to opt in and receive them. Be sure to thank Connor as well. If you will, Sid Fisher has now received one of those memberships, leaving just the 2. The quickest 2 to opt in, get those memberships. Baron Corbin versus Pat McAfee has been building for a couple of weeks, and I'm genuinely very excited for it. I don't see Pat McAfee picking up the win. I think this will very much be Baron Corbin's moment, but I think it's been a long time coming for Baron Corbin to have something this big. When you consider his history, the victories over, for example, Kurt Angle and more, it is an absolutely wonderful thing to see, knowing that Pat McAfee has been something of a kingmaker. Baron Corbin now has the opportunity to be king made and go forwards from here. I do think Baron Corbin has an opportunity now, an opportunity to become, once again, top level main event ready for a championship. The final 2 memberships from Connor have gone to Ross Menzies and our very own stat queen, Megan Sittin. Thank you to both of you for opting in and receiving those memberships. I very much appreciate your continued generosity there, Connor. Thank you as always for being so supportive. Next up, another celebrity element. The Miz versus Logan Paul is on the plan for SummerSlam. The Miz versus Logan Paul. So The Miz will be trying to avoid Logan Paul, but I expect to see Logan Paul at Raw over the next few weeks, chasing down The Miz until he eventually gets his match. Logan Paul is there to be a full-time wrestler. He is going to be booed. The WWE will book him as a face regardless. The Miz will be the heel. Logan Paul will be the face, despite the fact that this is one of those where The Miz is going to get cheered and Logan Paul is going to get booed. 3 matches remain that are currently planned for SummerSlam. Next up, the Usos versus the Street Profits. I've been promised that this match will involve a stipulation, one that will not involve pinfalls, because Montez Ford, of course, did get his shoulder up. So Montez Ford is looking for something of revenge. He and Angelo Dawkins will get another opportunity against the Usos. I do believe we are likely to see something like a ladder match or a tables match. Just something to avoid the potential for a pinfall. Should be great. Should be absolutely great. It's one of the reasons the match wasn't so high-paced at Money in the Bank. They were saving more for later. 6th on the list is Edge versus Finn Balor. Edge's return began with the vignette at Money in the Bank. We will see more from him in the coming weeks, even if it's just more vignettes. And eventually he will be coming to get revenge against Finn Balor. That moment will come as he basically has to fend off Finn Balor, Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest if Rhea Ripley is cleared to compete. Finally, the match we are definitely already aware of is the last man standing match between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Roman Reigns, for me, will be retaining. It should be a better match than their WrestleMania match, which itself wasn't a bad match, but also wasn't a great match. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Now, there are still some names missing. I think the most notable one there is Bianca Belair, but also Volta, Bobby Lashley, missing from that list there, Drew McIntyre as well, and so many others. At this point in time, the matches that I've been made aware of are only those 7, but we are looking at 9 or 10 different matches. I do expect both mid-card championships will be on the card, as will the Raw Women's Championship. Right, let's catch up with the chat once again. Spider-Boss says, I just want to see SmackDown win at least once in Survivor Series. You and me both, mate. You and me both. Justin Stevens says, will Bliss be in a match at SummerSlam? I don't see it as of now. As of now, no. Though I do feel she may end up back in a ring with Liv Morgan at some point relatively soon. KJ says, Drew versus Gunter versus Sheamus. Sorry, but Sheamus eats the pin. I'd still love that. I'd still love that as a feud. I'd still love that as a match. Thank you very much for following over on Twitch. Taekwon Mills, thank you very kindly for the follow. Welcome to the show. We will be having notifications sent out to you as you're a follower every time we go live for SmackDown watch parties. Spoiler warning, which is on Mondays and Fridays. We also on Twitch do The Last of Us Part 2 gaming streams. Unfortunately, at the moment, we are still in that category. That's an oversight on my part that I do apologise for. But that is what we do on Twitch. So hopefully, if you check out your notifications when they come through and you see something that interests you, by all means jump in. It's Ask Me Anything as well, so if you'd like to ask a question, please do. Moxie says, Tom, I think Paul Heyman is getting F5'd at SummerSlam. I thought he'd get F5'd at WrestleMania. It didn't happen, and that's a shame. King says, I heard it's going to be Ronda versus Liv at SummerSlam. Scared Ronda will win it back. That is the plan for SummerSlam. That is a plan for SummerSlam. That's nice, that's nice. But to my knowledge, there will not be a reclamation by Ronda Rousey. Simon says, is AJ Styles going to be on SummerSlam? Doesn't look like it at this point in time. No. Spider-Boss says, imagine if Bianca faces Carmella at SummerSlam and Bayley comes back beating down Carmella and challenging Bianca. That is certainly a possibility. The beatdown from Carmella after the Money in the Bank match does suggest that we're getting more to come from this one. King says, I hope it's going to be Belair versus Becky at SummerSlam. Could be. There is still a possibility of that, though Asuka is certainly still involved in the picture. KJ says, Kurt Hawkins may have something to say about wanting to lose. Fair point. Spider-Boss says, does Charlotte want to give back to her peers as Becky is doing now? She does, but not to the same degree. There are reports out there that she wanted to lose to Bianca Belair way back when. However, those reports were questioned when it came out that Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, the person who reported them, took the information directly from, and I quote, Charlotte Flair's camp. So, big questions asked about that. Austin says, no watch along tonight, right? That is right. There'll be no Raw watch party, though, of course, we will have one on Friday. It is also our birthday party on Friday. More on that shortly. I have an overlay to show off. It's you're going to love it. Spider-Boss says, do the Usos get involved in the last man standing match? Not if they end up falling off a ladder, they don't. No. They certainly could, but they could be utterly destroyed also. Lots of different possibilities. Connor says, had to make up for my lack of donations over my period of time away. Well, you didn't, to be clear. There is never a point at which I'm going to need or require donations from anyone, but what I will say is I'm very, very appreciative of it. That's 10 new memberships. I understand if at the end of the gifting period you guys want to cancel the membership, that's absolutely fine. I don't know how it actually works in that regard, so please do check that out to be sure one way or the other. I don't want to accidentally have anyone charged, just to be clear. But what I will say is enjoy the month. And remember, I'll remind you at the beginning of August, there are 2 members-only videos, and there are more to come in the month to come. So hopefully you'll enjoy them. Johnny says, is Logan's WWE deal part-time? Yes, it is. It is not a full-time contract, but we will be seeing a lot of him shortly. It's limited date. Hypnosis Bro says, I'm going to make a bold prediction. Tom, remember this message. It's going to happen. Becky Lynch will have a meltdown about losing the briefcase. Wait, we all know that. Forget about it. Well played. JJ says, I love that Becky wants to lose to people because a lot of people think she's selfish and doesn't care about the women's division. Absolutely not even close to true there. You are absolutely right. Becky's been very open about the fact, and there are lots of different reports out confirming it. Spider-Boss says the last time Corbin got a big victory was in TLC 2019 when he defeated Roman. The dog food feud. Good times. Simon says, who will Bobby Lashley versus at SummerSlam? Not sure. I'm really not sure at this point in time. I suspect he may go back to Omos, to be completely blunt, but we'll see how it plays out. He may get a rematch against Austin Theory. It's feeling like there's going to be a lot of rematches very shortly. Thomas says, at the moment, what match are you most looking forward to seeing? Probably Corbin versus McAfee, to be honest with you. Never thought I'd be saying that, but here we are. Simon says, Street Profits versus Usos rematch at SummerSlam? Indeed. And says the women's tag team titles will get toxic at the draft, in my opinion. I'd like that. I think that's good. Connor says, I'm thinking a tables match as Roman is head of the table. That works for me. And Michael says, I just thought, what happened with Gable Steveson? He's training, he is preparing. He does still have some commitments to oversee. He's also wondering if maybe wrestling isn't for him. Thomas says, ladder match will be amazing. Douglas Bino realised the idea of a TLC match. Simon says, big fantasy booking. Bianca needs an opponent for SummerSlam. If not Rhea, how about Sasha? Once again, we don't know. We cannot factor in Sasha at this point in time. The WWE are making plans for SummerSlam. Sasha is not part of those plans. She is absolutely not part of those plans. Spider-Boss says, I wonder if the Street Profits lose again against the Usos. Stipulation could be if the Street Profits lose, they have to break up. I suspect the breakup will come when Angelo Dawkins attacks Montez Ford, but let's see how that goes. KJ says, it's funny you say about That about the tag match, because Angelo defeated Uso on Raw in a winner-pick stipulation match. Well, lots of ways that can go, isn't it? Lots of ways that can go. Simon says a Bianca rematch would definitely get Sasha back. Becky versus who at SummerSlam? Well, once again, I think Asuka. I've only been able to give you the news that I have, so I don't know anything other than the 7 matches that I've mentioned. Tyquan Mills says, hey, opinion on Theory. I think he's got what it takes to go a very, very long way. I think he's got the push via Vince. He's got the connections. Certainly people believe in him. He's got the physique, and he's Miz-level detestable at a very, very young age. So honestly, I'm quite excited. KJ says, I'd say Bianca versus Rhea. Once again, we have to wait to see if Rhea is cleared before we know what the match is going to be. But I do think that's the best concept that they can put together. Lashley versus KO. I did mention that earlier, and I do think that's going to be starting soon. Gunther versus Sheamus versus McIntyre would give us 10 matches. Biggest name left off will be AJ. Fair. Jermaine says, hey Tom, Fightful Select is saying the Gunther is supposed to be on Raw tonight as of this morning, but things could change. They always have to leave in the phrase things could change. I wouldn't mind it. I don't know how he would be involved, but I wouldn't mind it. Michael says, I don't know if this means anything or if I'm looking into something that doesn't exist. Based on his Instagram pictures, it doesn't look like Mikaze was travelling after the walkout. He was at Money in the Bank, just an observation more than anything. He is still working his role in WWE. Johnny says, I heard that Heyman might be getting involved in creative soon. Is there any truth to this? This comes from a report with Wade Keller, my boss at PWTorch, who said he thinks it might happen. There is actually no formal report. Simon says, do you think Alexa Bliss has a match at SummerSlam? I don't. Raleigh says, Bayley returning soon. Sean said at Fightful she's training in the ring. Can't wait. Probably SummerSlam return, maybe. Thoughts, Tom? Well, if you're not already aware, Raleigh, I've been reporting way ahead of the other Fightful reports about Bayley's impending return. Said a couple of weeks ago that we are just waiting on the right storyline for her, that she's been cleared, she is training, her knee's fine, and we'll see her soon. So yes, while Fightful have reported it, they have confirmed my report, they just haven't bothered to mention me. Spider-Boss says, I'm surprised that Corey Graves wasn't so hyped during Carmella's match. He did his thing, but he's still professional. Moxley says, Tom, do you think Moss is a future world champion? Maybe, I'm not sure. Taekwon says, when do you think Cena and Theory is happening? As soon as Cena is available. I do think at this point WrestleMania is a more likely destination than, for example, SummerSlam. Austin says, Solo shows up at SummerSlam because there's reports of a call-up. There are reports of that. Certainly it could happen. It would make sense. Razar says, I feel like them running back Brock Roman changed a lot of the SummerSlam card, specifically Ronda versus Charlotte and Becky versus Bianca with a stip. Guessing they didn't want the pay-per-view to be WrestleMania Part 2. I would say there's been a lot of changes to the card. It was supposed to be Cody winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then after that, we were talking about the favourites being Becky and Seth. It was supposed to be Randy Orton taking on Roman Reigns. This is going to be a very different SummerSlam. Johnny Mendez says, I know Andrew Zarian, as well as you, reported that WWE will have superstars crossing between brands depending on storyline. After the draft, is this going to carry on or become less of a regular thing? After the draft, this will become less of a regular thing. This essentially is because of the struggles that they're having on SmackDown with the roster at the moment. Joey says, what are they planning for Seth Rollins? I'm not sure, but I do still see a WWE Championship reign in his near future. Riley says, I see Shotzi got a lot of stick online. She just had a bad night, hit her head on the ladder, Senton looked painful. I love Shotzi, leave her alone, don't say you should be released, not nice, be nice people. Saying that someone should be released or fired is absolutely uncalled for, utterly ridiculous, and completely unnecessary. Yes, there were botches, that is something that happened, but to say someone should be fired because they missed a move when their rehearsal time was like 20 minutes on their hotel room bed, you don't know what happened backstage, leave her alone. Hypnosis Bro says, is it possible we're not getting Asuka versus Becky at SummerSlam? Just wondering if we get Becky Alexa instead. Though now that I think about it, it's 3-3 between Becky and Asuka in singles matches. Yeah, they're looking for the conclusive finish to the feud and then they move on. At that point, Alexa can be more involved, but Alexa versus Becky is a feud that is in the making at the moment. Moxie says, SmackDown better win this year's Survivor Series. See how that plays out. Simon says, Drew versus Roman still a plan for Cash at the Castle? At the moment, yes. And Thomas says, any more news on Naomi? Nothing that I haven't already mentioned in the video so far. Joey says, is this a new hiring process in WWE now to just go after college athletes and celebrities? Yeah. That or big name wrestlers from other companies like Cody Rhodes. King said, is John Cena booked for SummerSlam? He is not at this point in time, but if his schedule is available, they will do that. And Jay suggests they should just do Seth versus John Cena at SummerSlam, which works for me. KJ says Banks versus Trish could be a match to bring her back. They would need to bring her back before they consider actually any matches for her. Andrew Quinn says it feels weird that the SummerSlam is in July, when it's usually in August time, but I'm not complaining. I would love to see Gunter versus Omos. Not a bad shout. I like that as a concept. Not a bad shout. Simon says Joey, Roxanne Perez, ROH, Booker T, Reality. That's a whole list of wrestling names. I'm just going to move on from that. KJ says one thing Fury does well that we don't talk about much is his facial expressions. He nails them every time. His overacting is brilliant, and I really love it. Spider-Boss says now that Cena is not scheduled for SummerSlam, does WWE still consider Mustafa Ali in the USA title picture? That would mean that Mustafa Ali would go up against Bobby Lashley, which I wouldn't hate, but I don't fancy his chances. Riley says, did you see that they didn't know who was winning the matches and finish the day of Money in the Bank? That's awful, a mess, unorganised. Do you agree, Tom? Vince Bruce would have thought they would know ages ago. Who reported that they didn't know the finish of the matches? The only one that I'm certain of would be everything that happened with Liv Morgan. That was announced on the day, but not decided on the day. Taekwon says, what should Rollins do between now and Cody's return? Win a WWE Championship. I would love that. Moxie says, Vince should dethrone Gunter in a 2-minute squash match next week. Don't give him ideas. Raleigh says, sorry Tom, I missed that. Well done for getting that scoop on Bayley. Good stuff. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Raleigh. You don't need to be sorry. I just wanted to clarify because, you know, most people aren't in here every time. I report what I report, and some things do get missed because it's not picked up by the mainstream media, as it were. But that is a situation. I always think back to when I made the report about Ronda Rousey coming back for the Royal Rumble. That happened, that report was made 3 days before it was behind the Fightful paywall. Again, my name not mentioned. Matthew Ham suggests Seth versus Riddle at SummerSlam. I wouldn't hate that. That's a logical shout. Not a bad shout there, Matthew. Hassan Terrell says hi there. Hello, Hassan. How you doing? Simon says Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who've they got at SummerSlam? Sami Zayn at the moment has no one. Kevin Owens, I suspect, may be the ideal feud for Bobby Lashley. Joey said, dude, that's only a couple of people. They don't want indie wrestlers. That's true. They very much don't want indie wrestlers. They just want top names. Connor says, I would love a Seth versus Volta match. Also not a bad shout. And Thomas Phipps says, did you see the report of Tony Khan being open to do a Forbidden Show with WWE? Personally can't see it happening, but Vince not in control at the moment, probably the only time when it's possible. It's not possible. To be really, really blunt and really, really clear on this, just really clear on this, WWE would receive absolutely no benefit from a Forbidden Door show of AEW, but AEW would receive massive benefit from a Forbidden Door show of the WWE. The WWE would be reaching way down for that show, whereas AEW would be reaching way up. WWE would be settling. Spider-Boss says, I hope that the possibility of work with Liv Morgan can convince Sasha to return. We'll see how it goes. Michael says, is there a PLE in August? There is not to my knowledge. King says, Roman versus Lashley at the Rumble. Do you think it's going to happen? I would love it to happen. Very much so. And Ronald says, Sean from Fightful and PWInsider reported that. Tom, what did they report there, Raleigh? Thank you. Right, about not knowing the match finishes. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. We always like to source our information here so we can respect the information that other people have reported. I was speaking about that, the late decisions on the actual Money in the Bank watch party. We did talk about Liv Morgan not knowing until right near the end there. The Austin Theory change was made very late. Those are the only ones that I really knew about, but the decision was made a little while earlier. Andrew Quinn says, Brood Edge versus Dean Balor at SummerSlam, that's my prediction. I wouldn't hate it, so I'll say. And Riley says, that would be a cool match. Omos versus Gunter. Good point, sorry, missed you said that. You don't need, once again, Riley, you are very welcome here. You don't need to be sorry at all. I appreciate you bringing the news in. We are going to wrap up there. It is just past 11 p.m. here. We peaked at a very impressive 71 viewers on YouTube. We've already had 645 views and 37 likes. Before I go, though, I would like to show you something. On Friday, we'll be doing a very special edition of Spoiler Warning, because on Thursday, it is Tom Colohue, that's me, Tom Colohue's birthday. As it's my birthday, we're doing a very special edition, which will be essentially the birthday edition of Spoiler Warning. With this in mind, our good friend Sai has created a new overlay purely for the occasion, and I just want to show it off because it's one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I'm so happy with it. So stick around just for a moment. If you haven't hit like yet, please remember to do so. It really does help the show continue to grow afterwards. We have 37 likes, and every little does help. And if you haven't subscribed yet, there's definitely a few new names here. Please do remember to do so. We've gained 1 subscriber since the show started, but a couple more, given that there are new names, would be very beneficial if you want notifications from here. So, are we ready for this overlay? I don't know if I'm ready. The birthday show on Friday, the overlay looks like this. Look how terrible that is. Sai has taken many of my favourite things, many things I love, and many things I don't necessarily love all so much. So, for example, over here you have Blackpool Tower, which is where I live. You have Ellie from The Last of Us down here, my favourite game. You have this little beauty here, which is my glasses and a mock-up of my facial hair. What the hell, Si? You have pirate insignia here because obvious reasons. You have the unicorn right above my head for the unicorn onesie. You have Sasha Banks just there hovering over me because I can't get away from her. Can't get away. You have the Liverbird, which is for Liverpool, which is obviously Liverpool FC, the football team I support. You have the PlayStation icons for the gaming side. You have Triple H, my favourite wrestler. They're looking brutal. And what else do you have? Just sneakily in the corner, right there, what else do we have? What can you see? Just in the corner, right there. What I love about this is that every time I look at it, I see something new and something different. Sai, sir, you have absolutely outdone yourself. On Friday, we will be doing a special birthday edition of Spoiler Warning. I hope to see you all there. The Go Live will be going live tomorrow, so you'll have plenty of time. And of course, if you're not already on our Discord, you will get notifications there. Let me just grab the Discord link for anyone who doesn't already have it, if I can remember how to do that. How doth one invite people? I think so. Yeah, copy link. So for anyone who's not already a part of the Discord, I'm just going to drop that on the YouTube side and also drop that on the Twitch side. Until then, however, I'm going to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us. A big thank you for the company, the questions, and an incredibly successful show today. Incredibly successful show. Massive thanks to everyone. Hope everyone's really enjoyed the news section as well. We tried to give as much news as possible in a short space of time. But until then, thank you everyone for joining me. I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic. And I'll see you all very soon.